The absence of respect is the foundation of the breakdown of our society. This is something that I think many of us know with head knowledge, but we don't know it. We don't exercise it on a deeper level, and we don't know it with spiritual knowledge. Recently, the Lord has shown me that respect is not a one-way thing. This kind of started because of like personal circumstances um, that I kind of mentioned in my weekly talk on mental health, the cross section between mental health and things of the spirit. A verse that like has really stuck out to me too have been, in the last days there will be this, there will be that. Children will be disrespectful to their parents. People will become lovers of themselves, lovers of evil, all that kind of stuff. And I looked at that verse, and it was one of those things where I'm like, man, we're living in the last days. But there was just this instant revelation that I had when I looked at that part where it says, children will become disrespectful of their parents. And I was like, there's more to this than what I'm reading. And when I read it, I was instantly brought back to the verse that says, children, honor your parents. For this is the first command that comes with a promise. And fathers or parents, do not exacerbate your children. Or some translations say, do not provoke them to wrath. Do not antagonize them. And I realized that we have mostly grown up with this idea of this one-way respect. I talked about this in my episode 5 of mental health and things of the spirit. I think it's 5. So it's the one about generational afflictions. So watch that. But I realized that, we we have heard it said over and over, honor your father and mother, honor your father and mother, honor your father and mother. But the rest of that verse has largely not been talked about or considered. One thing that the Lord has shown me when it comes to dealing with people, dealing with family, especially, but in general, most things are two ways. Most things are two-sided. Very few things are a one-sided issue. There's typically the actual problem and then your view of the situation, your interpretation. And it's always a little bit faulty because we lack grace and understanding for why someone would say that or do that or whatever the case is. Now, some things are just, inexcusable, but most things, it's more than meets the surface. And that was the Lord's conviction to me with dealing with people, how to deal with people with grace. So anyways, going back to that verse, I was really shocked to realize, oh my gosh, there is this other charge. There's the charge to the child to be respectful. But then there's also the charge to the parent to be respectful. And in our Western world, in the United States, probably in many places, but definitely in the United States, the idea of respect has been very, the standard has been kind of a little bit all over the place. Um, it's changed over time, and this is probably true everywhere, but it's really just, it's been this at some points, it's been this at some points, you know. Um, Again, mentioning that video that I had recorded a couple of weeks ago, it would have been disrespectful for people in like your average baby boomer household and older to even talk when adults were talking, think that they could contribute when adults were talking. Even if they did so respectfully, it's like that's just not your place. Which was just the standard, the societal norm at the time, which, I'm not going to impact that as anything more than just that was just the standard of the day. However, I will say that respect, excuse me, as the Lord has showed me recently, has to be a two-way thing. If it's on one side, just like with communication, they say, experts say, relationship experts say, if you have, if you don't have communication and you don't have respect, you don't really, those are the foundations to a relationship. And what the Lord showed me is that if you can't have a one-sided version of those things. You can't just have respect towards someone and them not uphold it towards you, or them towards you and you don't uphold it to them. Whatever relationship situation you think you have, you just don't have. And recently I've had to have some real experiences with this in several different ways to realize, like, oh my gosh, like, respect is not something, really, truthfully, respect is not something that you can demand. It's really not authentic respect. There's a level of respect that is and should be just a given. And yes, spiritually speaking, by honoring your parents, you will, there is a benefit to you. And the reverse is also true. By not honoring your parents, there is a curse that you can bring upon yourself. But there's a basic level of respect that you have that is kind of a given, or should be a given. Parent to a child, like us kind of to authority in general, like the military or police or something like that. Um, and then there's a deeper understanding of respect that is needed to form a healthy relationship. Needed to have and maintain a healthy relationship as well, not just at the beginning. And this is something that many of us, we're failing in, and we're seeing this on a societal level, that people just don't have respect. And truthfully, if you don't have respect for one another, you don't have a society. You don't. One of the reasons why I think the Charlie Kirk death was so big and impactful, I mean, there were more than one reason there, but, you know, one of the reasons is that, someone wants to stand up for what they believe in, and now you can just be taken out for that. You can just be killed for that, or people could plot against you. I mean, this has always been a thing. Let me not like pretend like this is new, but it's something that we've seen largely in other places, not so much in the US, not as much in the West. Or at least we'd like to believe that. Maybe it's always been here, I don't know, but and that's an interesting thing to consider, because um it's like legally, we have the right to freedom of speech, but socially we kind of don't anymore. People are so incredibly offended, and they will try. It's not that, okay, you have a different opinion, it's that you have a different opinion from what I believe, therefore it's wrong, and you shouldn't even be allowed to express it. You just need to be canceled. You just need to be shut down. Like, like, we want to take your livelihood, maybe your life, whatever. It's like so incredibly just hostile. There used to be a time where you can have a disagreement with someone and you have this respect. You have your opinion, I have mine. But nowadays, we've lost that. That's a rare person who can say, okay, I have my experiences and that's how I've come to this conclusion, and you have yours and that's how you came to that conclusion. We've lost that as a society. Very few people have that level of maturity, and it's honestly, it's really scary, because I don't know what the future is going to look like. I mean, we have security in Jesus, but dang. Nowadays, anything that goes against the popular narrative is something to just be eradicated. No longer is it just a difference of opinion. Lord help us. But that's a lack of respect. And if we can't have respect for fellow man, we won't have a functioning society. This is why I know that the end times are coming, because our society will completely break down when we start behaving in this way. And it's becoming a norm, and it's not good. It's probably only going to get worse, to be honest. But I'm kind of digressing, sorry. Respect, it has to be a two-way thing, and part of the reason why the younger generation, young millennials and Gen Zers and all that, why it seems like they're so soft and offended and all this stuff, is because they're seeing things from a different perspective, for one. And they're understanding that respect, in many cases and historically, is not something that has been granted to kids. So they've grown up with this level of disrespect that has been okay and normalized by our society because you're just a kid, you know. I mean, I've literally heard people say stuff like, you know, like just really disparaging things about kids and how they think and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, yes, kids are different with their processing and everything, but you're supposed to help them. You're supposed to teach them. You're not supposed to like try and be disparaging towards them because they're a kid and this is how. That's just such a weird way of thought. And anyway, so a lot of this disrespect that we're seeing, while I don't agree with some of the ways that people are talking about parents and some of the things that people are advocating for, I don't agree with it. It's also not a one-sided thing. It's also something where parents have not considered the role that they've played in the breakdown of their relationship between them and their child. Now, I'm not saying every single relationship, okay? I know there are kids who are just disrespectful, and that's different. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in general. Like, there is such a crazy push for everyone to almost be in therapy, and some of that is a trend, and some of that is just, you know, whatever. But some of that is legitimate. Some of it is, wow, my parents continued to cross boundaries for me that, like, with even a normal person, they might not cross those boundaries with your average person, your like non-relative, you know, like sometimes how um could be parents, could be you, could be you know, any of us where we kind of act a little bit different, maybe a little bit nicer to people outside, like, you know, outside our home. And then there's how you act like inside your home. And I know for me, one of the things that this has really opened my eyes with is the fact that there has been a level of, how do I say this? It's like, because there was this idea that it's like I'm just a kid, I'm not worthy of like a level of respect. It was teaching me how to be disrespected by others, if that makes sense. It was teaching me how to not stand up for myself, not advocate for myself, you know, be in potentially harmful situations with harmful people and not have good boundaries issues. And this has obviously affected me socially, you know, and emotionally and mentally as well. But a lot of us around the in our 20s, early 30s, whatever, um are realizing that this standard has messed us up as far as not only in relation to our parents, but also moving forward and trying to foster relationships with others. Now, this is not a coming against parents thing. This is not that. Um, I'm really not an advocate for disrespect anywhere. And I don't fully understand what exactly I think it looks like to be respectful to your parents when they aren't respectful to you, because again, like I said, it can't be one-sided, you know. Like, if there is a lack of respect understood as a standard, and they say or do something that crosses a boundary or makes you uncomfortable or whatever, and you say, hey, like, you know, I didn't appreciate that, whatever, and they say, well, you know, whatever, too bad, like, it's my house, my rules, that's just how it is. Like, I don't think that they understand that that doesn't help the the child grow. It's actually being like the opposite of a parent in that moment. It doesn't help the child grow. It doesn't really do anything other than just anything positive, anything good. And if you operate like that, what's going to end up happening is you're going to sow seeds of bitterness, potentially unforgiveness, negativity in your child towards you. It's just going to happen. That's just the natural consequence of being someone who operates with no respect, invalidates, gaslights, all that stuff. This isn't like some weird psychology thing. This is actually just spiritual. This is just what happens. And this is why there's that second part of that verse that talks about parents. Don't exacerbate your kids. Don't antagonize them. But well, also, actually, I just thought about this. The reason why we don't have respect in general, there's probably more than one reason, but why it's becoming so much of a thing starts in the home. If there's not a good example, there's this quote that you might have heard. It says something like, kids don't do what you tell them, they do what they see, or something to that effect. If you're saying one thing over here and then showing something different, and that's the example that is seen and seen and seen again, that's what they're going to gravitate towards. That's what they're going to copy. And it starts in the home. You can't just point the finger and say, "Oh, that child." There are times, but most of the time, no. So because there's not a sound idea of the principle of respect, it's already coming from a flawed place. Um but respect, yeah, it has to be a two-way thing. So what this looks like, from my understanding, from what the Lord has shown me, is, like I say, there's the base level, and then there's the level that helps you foster deeper connections with people. And the base level is something that has to be taught. It is something that, you can't have your kids running the household or anything crazy like that. They have to know, like, that parents are authority over their children. Not everything is going to be explanation as to why you need to do this or why you don't need to do this, or whatever the case is. But basic respect is just the principle of understanding. Treat people how you want to be treated. If we understood also the principle of fear of the Lord, we would be so careful with people. If we understood the weight of our words in the spirit realm, we would be so careful with people and how we interact with them. And it starts in the home. And no parents are people too. They need grace too. I see people where it's just disrespectful. They're just holding on to this anger and this bitterness, and it's like, I know that there's some evil parents out there, but for the majority of us, they tried their best. They operated with the capacity that they had, and they couldn't go beyond that. And we're privileged to know better and do better. But we can't have that then turn on someone else, because in that case, now we're slipping into pride. But no parent should ever think that they're above being wrong. It's just insane. This is actually why there's the biblical hierarchy of what family looks like, what it should look like, so that there's always someone that you're in submission to. Um, Submission and respect go hand in hand. I don't even know if there is really a difference there. I'm not sure. But both of them have the ideas or the principles of, you understand that person's authority, and that person in turn also understands the authority that they're given, and they don't try and go outside of that. And you don't challenge them outside of the area that you're given, if that makes sense. The principles of submission are to understand your jurisdiction, understand the areas in which you are supposed to rule over and what you're not supposed to. We get into trouble, we get into error because we want to control people beyond the jurisdiction that we're given. You can't control someone's feelings and you can't control someone's thoughts. And the desire to do so is pride. Point blank, period. um Respect looks like being able to give understanding of someone's position. In summary, and treating them how you want to be treated. Meaning, if they disrespect you, that's on them. But if you then in turn say, well, you disrespected me, so now you're now in error. You've now tainted yourself. So, whatever issue, transgression they did against you, you're now just as equal in God's eyes. From a spiritual perspective, you're equal now. It's hard to come to terms with this because it's very fleshly, very normal human behavior to want to take vengeance in our own hands, right? Sometimes it can feel even a little bit good, but you will taint yourself. This is why the Lord says, vengeance is mine, because he will right the wrong in a way that you won't have to get dirty. My last thing on this will just be that if you're a parent and that's how you were raised, respect is demanded, and there's no true understanding of it. There's a hurt that you're sustaining that you need healing from. Otherwise, you might project that onto your children. And you need to show them what it looks like to be not only respectful, but to be respected. You are the chosen one for your child to embody what it is to be, for them to be respected. They are going to look towards you as the framework of, okay, I will settle for nothing less because my dad respected me like this, my mom respected me like this, whatever. And that also needs to be understood. It's not just about teaching them respect, but teaching them how not to be disrespected. And yes, we're all human beings. You can disrespect your children. So I think that's all that I have for you on that. But this is a really important word, honestly. It might sound really simple, but it's really, people of God, pray that youth will get this. There's a lot of bitter and angry, and it goes both ways. I mean, young people are very sensitive and pissed off, but older people are also very pissed off and sensitive in a different display, in a different way. But yeah, so we all need prayer, and we need to get this, because this is actually one of the last shreds of um, our society not fully collapsing. When disrespect is lost, um, it's already starting to crumble, but they're starting to write legislation now that, how do I say this, promotes a disrespect or disregard of parents, especially in California, where I'm at. We're seeing it now, where you can go behind your parents' back and get this and get that, and it's all for the sake of like mental health and avoiding like any issues, potential issues with parents, but it is just disrespectful. We can't get anywhere when we just want to disregard those who have cared for us and fed us and loved us and all that stuff. People are not going to be able to love you perfectly. We all fall short, and people will fall a lot shorter if they're not submitted to the Lord, but there's always going to be flaws with someone loving you. However, that doesn't mean that they don't love you. Don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. You will destruct. You will be so broken. In fact, you'll never feel loved, because there will always be something. And there's been stuff that you've probably done that's less than loving too. So you have to consider that as well. Anyways, pray, pray, pray. Pray, 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 pray. That's all I have for you. Bye.